Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I'm joined today by Bruce.
Hello.
And we've got another returning guest to the pod. We have got Richie Ramsay. How you doing, Richie?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I've got a feeling we're keeping you occupied during quarantine, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm just, I've got my daily chores to do and stuff like that. And I just thought, well, add the Cookie Jar podcast in there. That's perfect.
Well, we're always at a loose end. We always got no one to chat to, and you knew it was a sure date. So
yeah, I was scared it was gonna clash with Scotland trying to beat Wales, but we'll be all right. You know, it would have been nice if we'd done this last week because then.
Yeah, well, actually, we're not going to talk about rugby on a golf podcast. So.
Yeah.
First time in ages, to be fair. You guys have done it at Twickers, isn't it? The Calcutta Cup.
Yeah, when they said it was the first time since 1983 that would beat England at Twickenham, I was like, I was born in '83, so I was like, we haven't had a good run. So you've got
insane.
You've got to take them while you get them.
Well, anyway, we'll move swiftly on from the rugby, if that's right, Richie. But we did kind of have another Renaissance friend of yours on the pod recently, and in fact, another R squared, Ronan Rafferty.
Yeah.
We had a good chat with him. You guys, I'm guessing, know each other a little bit from Renaissance Club.
Yeah, I see him up there. Every so often, more so in the summer. And obviously, he played on tour back in the day and did a lot in the game, especially at that time when things were growing and taking off with Europeans starting to make moves in America and majors and stuff, and that whole sort of generation with Faldo, Woozy, Lyle, Langer. So it's good to have him up there, and got a wealth of experience.
Yeah, he was good fun, wasn't he, Bruce? We had a good 2.5 hours, and I mean, we didn't even scratch.
I was literally going to say, hardly scratched the surface. Just stories for days, weren't there? But it's fantastic to get Ronan on, and a little shout out to Jordan at Entourage Golf. I think it's in order, isn't it?
Yeah, so Jordan, he used to work at Renaissance, didn't he? And he's now got Entourage Golf, which is a really cool. If you haven't checked it out already, you must do. It's a really good little travel company. It's going to be a little bit different, a little bit hip. And Jordan got in touch, and obviously knowing Ronan, thinking, well, what a great storyteller. Let's see if the Cookie Jar boys are up for talking to him. So big shout out to Jordan.
Yeah, he's done a great job and started up that Entourage Golf, and he's been in the business a long time. Also worked at Renaissance, and he's got what a lot of people, especially those people traveling in, specifically from America, he's got a great idea of what they want and what they need, and little things that you wouldn't go to, because sometimes as a golfer you travel, you fall into the tourist trap a little bit, and you want to go to all these places that you've never heard of, these quaint little pubs, these cool places to eat, and these little golf courses that you wouldn't ordinarily go and play, and cool places to stay that are that make your trip, because that's what it's about. When it's a boys' trip, you want to remember it, and Jordan's got all the knowledge for that.
We've had our Scotland trip. Listeners will be bored of hearing about it. But the observation coming away from that in Scotland is you guys just have so many good people in and around golf, just marketing it, concierge, facilitating, getting people to courses, making sure an itinerary is set. Like, we don't have anything of that in England. And I think that just makes, a little trip through East Lothian, or whether it's the Highlands or Fife or whatever, it just makes it mega special, because you've got so many knowledgeable people around there that just care so much about it that, and like Jordan's, I guess, kind of one of those people, really.
Yeah, it's this. We're so fortunate we've got these kind of pockets of golf courses, and within those golf courses, there's a huge variance. Like East Lothian's a great example, because you can play Muirfield Open Championship golf course, you can play Renaissance Private Members Club, but then you could go down to Craigie Law and there's a little par 3 that you could hang out with your mates and have a couple of beers and go and play that, or you go and play Bindi, which is super short, beautiful views, but so much fun. And so there's a huge variance of golf courses, and that also reflects itself in the hospitality and everything like that. You can stay at a B&B, be close to everything, or you want to stay at a really nice hotel, maybe in centre of Edinburgh, and get the train out. So it actually saves you time as well. That's the thing. When you've got someone who's a lot of knowledge and they're organising trips, particularly if you're travelling from East Lothian, or you're going up north, like, people just look at it and go, well, that's 100 miles. That'll take me an hour and 15 minutes. And it's like, no, you don't want to go over the Forth Road Bridge at this time, or you don't, or 100 miles is actually, that'll take you like 2 and a bit hours, because the roads are windy and you're not difficult to work out where you're going. So yeah, local knowledge is really important. I always find that when I go away somewhere, if I've got someone close who lives there, I'll maybe just text them and say, what do you think about this? I'm going to play this course. Is this the right? You'll say, don't go at this time. A better time to go is later in the afternoon when it's quieter. There's not too much traffic, that kind of stuff. So you make the most of your day. And when you've got, I imagine, between boys' trips or anywhere between 2-3 days to 10 days, you got to try and make the most of your time.
So kind of with that in mind, another little trip you've just come back from then is obviously a swing in the Middle East. How's life in the bubble been?
Yeah, it was good. It's obviously a great place to go to.
You got a nice little tan, actually, which I never thought I'd say to a Scotsman.
Well, that'll wear off. The golfer's tan will wear off pretty quick. But, yeah, I mean, it was good. Not the results I wanted, but yeah, it's just working on stuff. The process and things are going really well, but results didn't really kick in. But it was a really good 3 weeks. Great to get away and play. A lot more. I feel like you spend a lot more time emailing, sending stuff, a lot more administration with regards to like who you've been with, where you're at, when you're getting there, all that kind of stuff. So you've got to be on top of that, because if you're not, like, they won't let you in. So that was a part of golf before. It's even going to be a greater part. So having someone who knows all the rules, and they seem to change every day as well, is really important.
You guys getting tested literally daily in the bubble, aren't you? Like, they're all.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
I was gonna say, last time we spoke, Richie, was May time. So, I mean, just the longer view of things. How has it been in general? Yeah, as Sam was saying, alluding to there, like the testing procedures and obviously the restrictions around travel, and just, I guess, life in the European Tour bubble as a whole over the last 9-10 months or so. How's that been? Has it been a big adjustment? Is there kind of chat amongst the guys about, it's difficult to really build up a head of steam and kind of play your way into some consistent form with it being a bit more broken up now?
Yeah, I think at the start it was difficult because your world changes. It's like you don't just go and play a practice round. You got to book it. You got to work out how you're going to get there. It's not just. It's just not as easy. You've got to be a lot more prepared and a lot more planned in what you're going to do.
Also, they have to know where you can't just sort of pitch up and say, can I go and have a little practice round, and kind of just, they want to know where you are almost hour by hour, do they, right?
Yeah, they want to know basically what time you're playing a practice round, who you're playing it with. So if something happens, they've got it's like a trace of where you've been and who you've been with. And if you're going to the gym, you can't just go to the gym. You got to book a time and you get a slot. So like if someone comes in, test, then it's got to get a deep clean, that kind of stuff. So they really want to know where you are, where you've been, who you've seen, and then everything's allotted on times. So you don't really just, if you're going to see a physio, you don't have just spend 45 minutes and work out and do this. It's like you get a slot and you go in there, and once you hit I think it's 15 minutes or 20 minutes, once you hit that, that's it, done. So it's there's a lot of planning and stuff around that, and I think guys. It's frustrating at the start because it changes your whole routine.
Yeah,
I think guys are used to it now. The Middle East was run really well. We were pretty much in the same hotel. There's normally one or two hotels, and everybody's staying in the same place. So everybody's eating in the same place, and it does get a little bit like Groundhog Day.
really.
I've been here before. Yeah, just every day is like feels like it's the same. But when you look back on it, like we're very fortunate. We're still running. We're still up and going. Whereas a lot of sports maybe aren't. And if that's what you got to do in order to play in really good tournaments and protect your livelihood, it's what you got to do. But it is nice when you come out of the bubble for like a day, and that kind of this is going to sound real funny, but like it's like walking down the road to go and get like a takeaway coffee, and just having that freedom to go outside. And we do get normally an hour to go out and walk and kind of do a bit of exercise, because it's as much taxing, like, because you're not getting that physical release. But it's the mental side, no doubt.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think I saw recently some old like Challenge Tour footage of Koepka and him talking about how he liked being on the Challenge Tour and actually, European Tour as well, because as an American, he was able to see like a whole array of cultures and travel to different places and go out and do some sightseeing as well in his downtime. And I guess that's now basically just gone really from. You can't really do that as a pro on the European Tour anymore. From what you're saying, everything's quite heavily kind of restricted, and it's like if you're not out on the course practicing or you're not in the gym, you kind of confined to your hotel room almost.
Pretty much. And for me, I don't know about all the other guys, but like occupying that time is a big thing. It's because it's like suddenly you're like, oh, I'm in my room, like, oh, even going downstairs, like, having a chat to a few guys, like sitting outside, having plenty of books on tap to read them, so the time goes by, so you don't start thinking about stuff. Because it's always like when someone says like you can't do something, you want it even more.
Yeah.
And everybody deals with it differently. Some people are okay with it. Some people struggle with it. It's just part of life now, and it definitely has an impact on. We talk about momentum as well. You're trying to build up momentum. You're trying to.
You feel constricted, I guess, don't you? You almost feel like there's just constantly must feel like there's almost like a set of reins on you, just sort of pulling you back a little bit, because it's quite hard to kind of just freestyle really, and get into your own flow with things, I'm guessing. Yeah,
I mean, I think most golfers are quite independent and they like doing their own things at their own time, and everybody's individual, and because of that, it's taken away a little bit. But it's they're ultimately they're trying to keep you safe, and that's the biggest thing. And I think for me, having a family, that's the other thing, is you realize that they're trying to keep us safe, but if we do that correctly, then it keeps our family safe. So when you go home, there's the risk to them is heavily reduced.
Yeah.
And I think when you become frustrated with things, and I put it in those terms, I'm like, no, I see it. It's fine. Let's just try and crack on with it.
Yeah, it's almost like a necessary, isn't it? It must be interesting as well, all kind of being in the same hotel and in that bubble. Do you guys kind of spend quite a bit of time socially in the evening? And also, I mean, I'm itching to know who's last at the bar in the hotel. There's got to,
of course, Sam wants to know.
We've got to go in for a bit of gore on the pod, haven't we? But it must be quite cool, all kicking around in the hotel together.
Yeah, you can't. It sounds funny. You can't really socialize because you've kind of got to stay within your group,
right?
But you do see guys, like going down. Like, sounds funny, but like going downstairs, like a night out is like going downstairs. I'll go and get a coffee and sit and maybe having a chat with someone from a distance, and that's like a kind of, that's almost like a little bit of a treat. Sam might be disappointed. No, I'm not once it hits Monday, I'm off the alcohol. I don't touch it until Sunday night.
Yeah.
And there's some boys who might be the opposite, who might need, might have a nice glass of wine every night or a couple of beers or something like that just to chill out. And that's let's say it's each to their own. I'm not as, I just put that rule in, and that's the way I kind of do things. And plus, I like an early bedtime. I like when it gets to about 9:30, I'm starting to
Really.
I'll fall asleep like.
I've got a young family. I'm in the same boat. I mean, 9:30 is as late as it gets for me these days. So
Yeah, it's like when you're younger and you think to yourself, 9:30. Where are you going to bed at 9:30? That's crazy. You just stay up and go out and stuff like that. And then you get to about mid-30s, you're like, oh yeah, the 10-hour sleep. Oh, that'd be brilliant. Yeah, get up.
Yeah.
Old man syndrome.
Yeah, well, I guess leading on from the swing in the Middle East, you've got a bit of a break now, sort of 3 weeks or so, 2-3 weeks, something like that, until the next European Tour event. I guess there's been a lot of chat recently about the PGA's acquisition of a stake in the European Tour and a seat at the table. Is there much in the way of chat, amongst players about the impact that's going to have? And obviously, commentators, it's their job to speculate about these things. But looking ahead, what's the kind of consensus, if there is such a thing, or just a general mood as to how things are looking for this season and the season ahead?
I think everybody's got a different view on it. Everybody that I've spoken to has got a different view, because we're all depending on where your position is in the pecking order, it affects you differently.
Yeah.
So, it's a good thing now that we've probably got a little bit more money and, Jay Monahan's on the board, because you would like to think that the scheduling would match up a little bit and it wouldn't clash as much. The BMW PGA is a good example. But for me, it's like 2 + 2 always equals 4. Like, there's only one way this is going, and it's a world tour for me. That's the way I look at it. And it's been going this way for a long time. And I think COVID's actually just might be the catalyst that seals everything. I believe in 5 years' time, maybe less, that it will come to the point where there will be a world tour, and those guys will play for significantly more money than we play for at the moment. And there'll be feeder tours. And those tours, and one of those tours might be Europe, it might be Asia, it might be Corn Ferry, but somehow there'll be a promotion and relegation within that. So if you're on the top end of it, this could be brilliant, and you like an international schedule, it'll be brilliant for you, and you could pay for a lot more money. But I think if you're kind of rank and file, if I was honest, you might be playing for less money, but with the opportunity to go up to the top. It just, and the way I come to that conclusion is that there's a lot of products out there in the moment of golf, and so I did marketing at university, and you look at a sponsor like HSBC. Now they sponsor Abu Dhabi. Now you also have a tournament on in America. So the cameras are in America, the cameras are in Europe, and there's a kind of, I'm not saying you're diluting the product, but there's not all eyes are on one golf tournament. I'm sure you guys watch some of this stuff in America, but watched Abu Dhabi. But
Sky obviously have to balance their commentary team across, what's going on in the US and Europe, and it's hard, and you can't, today's golfer, like, geez, I can't I can't commit to one tournament for a full weekend, let alone two. Like if I watch the Abu Dhabi on a Sunday and then tune in for what's going on in the PGA in the evening, like I'm divorced. Like, I mean, that's 10 hours of golf. Like I can't.
Yeah. Try and pass that.
Yeah, exactly.
Through the misses, that's not happening.
But you're right. There's a massive clash, isn't there?
Yeah, and I just think, you know, if you said to, I'm just using HSBC as an example, if you said, you know, okay, you got one tournament, but instead of putting, you know, X amount of millions, double it, and instead of having maybe half the eyes or less than half the eyes on you, you're going to get all the attention and you're going to get a better field, and we're going to guarantee it. So suddenly it's like you have people from Asia, people from Europe, all around the world, and they're focused on one tournament. And then everything that feeds off there with regards to the advertising moves up, the TV rights moves up, the amount of eyes just watching the TV, the social media interaction moves up. And I just think that, like, the economic argument will always outweigh some of the other arguments. And I think, like, I love the European Tour. I think it gives a lot of character. We go to some really cool places, you know, and America would love to tap into that. Like, you know, one week we're playing in like Hong Kong, the next week we're up a mountain in Switzerland, then we're going to play just outside Versailles. So you got the Palace of Versailles there, and then you're in London, and then suddenly you're in the Highlands in Scotland, and then you're playing on the coast in Ireland. I mean, all those places have huge character. They're really cool places to visit. The people welcome us. The hospitality is fantastic, particularly in places that don't get these big tournaments all the time. You know, when you go to like Lahinch, it's a whole town thing, and everybody buys into it. Yeah. And I think, honestly, that's something like the PGA Tour will never have, and I think that's something that we have in bucket loads, and they would love to get some of it.
Yeah,
it is,
definitely.
I mean, Corn Ferry, you know, by comparison, you know, it really is just town to town, and you know, I mean, again, it's easy for us to say, being over here with the breadth that you just talked about, but yeah, there's a lot more going for it in terms of the course setup, and you know, that must be interesting playing and visiting those places. But it's also good from a viewing point of view, right? Like, you know, it's fascinating to watch, you know, some of the world's best play Dubai Desert Classic, and then later in the year get to watch people tee it up in, you know, a Renaissance or, you know, Lahinch or, you know, Wentworth, you know, and it's a big contrast there. How do the other guys kind of take to it? Does he think it kind of fares pretty much based on, like you say, where they're at in terms of rankings, as to whether or not, you know, they can see, you know, maybe the world tour would be for them, and if so, they're kind of in favor of it, or is it generally pretty kind of even split in terms of people who are kind of for or, you know, against it?
I think in general, most people are for it. I think most people are for that PGA Tour buy-in, because they feel like it's going to strengthen our product in the short term, for sure. There's also money comes in there, and there's influence comes in there. You know, nobody knows for certain what's going to happen in the future, but I just feel like these are the first steps towards it. If you listen to the heads of not the governing bodies, but the heads of the tours, and you listen to exactly what they say, they don't specifically come out and say this is what it's going to be, but they talk about big tournaments. They talk about big tournaments getting better fields, and the World Tour does that in a way. I think the European Tour the Europe in general needs a tour, and you can never forget about that. But I think they'll come to a sticking point where things will start to change, and the product will have to get better. The product will need to be a little bit different. You know, I think No Laying Up guys talk about that with regards to the adverts and stuff. I mean, you need to get eyes on golf, And that has an impact of getting people to play golf. There's no doubt about it. So I think there will be a significant change in the next 5 years. I don't know exactly when, but I think in the next 5 years it will come, and there'll be a change in it, because I don't think it can go on the path it's going and still be as relevant.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people would be in favour of that world tour you've just outlined, Richie, because I guess one element of it is that golf is maybe seen as being a more meritocratic sport than others, whereas it's not, subject to the same kind of guessing around, like just football's perhaps the obvious example where it's maybe subjective as to, whether you make it to a top team, whereas in golf it's like everyone nowadays is so good, you've got to have like that inner belief that you're going to be playing on that top stage, and therefore having the best fields, having huge prize funds, playing at the best courses that, obviously the three of us are all architecture enthusiasts, playing at courses that are interesting to watch and play. All of that would be, a positive development, I think. Perhaps the concern is maybe around the PGA Tour just kind of remaining where it is, and most of the big tournaments being played in America on some courses that a lot of people would see as being bland or boring, and maybe just that American kind of insularity is what people don't want. They want a tour that, as you say, it's going to maybe play some awesome events down at the Sandbelt in Royal Melbourne, which everyone regards as being one of the best spots to play golf in the world, or going out to Hong Kong, going out to, the Highlands of Scotland, just something that is global in nature, but brings together the best fields. And as you guys are saying, has all eyes on those events at particular points in time. And then maybe, I guess, would the logical step there be for the Corn Ferry to be a kind of feeder to that, based in America? I think the tour in Japan's kind of pretty well received at the moment in terms of the prize funds and how it treats its players. And then maybe it'd even bolster like the Challenge Tour, say in Europe, and maybe allowing sort of Challenge Tour prize funds to become a little bit more comparable to the Corn Ferry, and all those kind of three prongs are maybe working towards this global tour. Yeah,
I mean, I fully believe that if it was a world tour, the majority of events would still be in America, because America's where the money is. So you can't get away from that. And say it was between, I'd say it was like 60% of the tournaments were there, and then you had maybe 15%, 20% in Europe, and then you split the other ones up, whether it be like a Ned Bank, a Ned Bank down there, and then it would be like one in New Zealand, one in Australia, and then you'd have potentially like a Dubai, Abu Dhabi, couple in Asia and one in Japan. That kind of idea, that sort of swing, or one in Korea. I think that's the way it's heading. But I get your point. I mean, because the amount of people who always say to me, "Oh, Cran-sur-Sere, like, oh, I'd love to go there. That looks a beautiful place." Or I was watching, what's that Castle Stuart like? The views look brilliant. I'll go and play that. And people it's amazing how much people are brought in by somewhere which has character and has a kind of atmosphere that you can't get. That's not just it's not just the same every week.
No one's saying that about Trinity Forest, are they, in America, for example?
No.
I mean, I've not played it, but no one is saying it about that, are they?
No, they to play it. I don't think that, bro.
Yeah, they didn't sort of buy into that, I don't think. I just think that's the way it's going, and that's what the key decision makers have in mind. And it would be, I think it would be good, but you still need those channels to get to the top. So I think, those feeder tours are really important, because you need to bring through those young players. I was one of those young players, and I was fortunate that the Challenge Tour, which is a heavily underrated tour in my mind, it teaches you your trade. It teaches you, if you're good enough, you're competing against really good players. You're traveling, like a lot of travel involved in it. So you learn that element of it, and and it really hardens you. And it doesn't surprise me that when you see a lot of guys win these days, like Stenson or Keimer or whoever it may be, they were all in the Challenge Tour because they learned their trick, and they learned it quickly and made that jump onto the European Tour. So the feeder tours are really, really important.
Yeah, and Koepka, another obvious example. And that must have felt like that was a really bold decision for him, I guess, wasn't it, to go out and do that, because it's so against the grain of how a lot of the players in America would grow up and kind of naturally find their way into, the PGA and professional golf.
Yeah.
In terms of the places, are there any kind of areas where you think, hell, I'd love to play a tournament out there? Where's the gaps in the schedule from your point of view?
I've always wanted to play in Japan. I've been really interested in like Japanese culture, the sort of the respectfulness and the politeness of the people in Japan, everybody that I've met, and the kind of there's a thing there's a word that I picked up. It's called kaizen, which is like continual improvement or progression of oneself, and that's kind of what I base my whole sort of golf career around. It's trying to progress and be the best I can be, and I feel like in Japan a lot of the people have that mindset, and there's obviously, not known to me, but over the last few years done a bit of research. There's a great history in Japan with the golf, and they're so enthusiastic about it over there. You saw it at the Dozo when the guys went over and played. So yeah, I would love to play in Japan. I've only played golf in New Zealand once, but never played like Cape Kidnappers or Tarariti.
Yeah. They look insane, don't they?
Yeah, they look.
I mean, the drone footage at Cape Kidnappers is
it looks just brilliant. So yeah, all those places that are far flung probably. Haven't played too much golf in Canada. Some of those places in Vancouver look really, really cool. And I've always wanted to travel, be up on that west coast and sweep all the way down and do, San Fran, some of the cool courses there, drive down 17 Mile and play like Monterey and Cyprus and do that drive. But yeah, Japan stands out for me because it's an
opportunity. There's huge cash in the game out there as well.
Yeah,
you've got to think there's a massive gap there for sponsors like just wanting to throw cash into a big event out there. Like they must be able to attract a big field.
You would like to think. I mean, it's not actually. If you put these things and do them separately, it's tough for guys to buy into it. So if you said to me, right, we're doing one event in Australia, I was like, there's no way I'm going down there for 1 week.
Yeah.
But if it's part of a swing, guys will buy into it. And that's kind of what you've really got to do. You've got to package them. And I've always said, and they've talked about it recently, like that WGC moving to concession and potentially it coming to Europe in time. So the reason that's so important is because it's not just the WGC that gets elevated, it's the tournaments around it. Because guys will, I'll play the WGC and I'll play the week after, or I'll play the week before as a warm-up and I'll play the WGC. So those events around the WGCs get elevated. So when you do something in Asia, or especially when it's a long way away, putting it in a package and just saying, right, we're going to play Korea 1 week, we're going to play Japan the next, and then we're going to have one outlier which may change. In those markets, I don't know the exact numbers, but apparently there's, something millions and millions of people in Korea who play indoor golf all the time.
Yeah.
So, and they've got a lot of seriously good players that are coming through on the PGA Tour. So you have those guys that pull them in. So from a markets perspective, it has huge potential.
Yeah, with South Korea, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, you look at the dominance as well in the women's game right now with South Korea. It's frightening, and there's not that talent coming through without a swell of interest in the sport. So you've just got to think there's opportunity out there. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, Richie, was the obviously recently the distance report came out, and rather unexpected from the R&A and the USGA, and that's kind of stirred up a bit of debate. What was I'm guessing there was a bit of murmurings out in the Middle East among, a luxurious cup of coffee at a safe 2 meter distance. I'm guessing that was kind of kicked around a little bit. What's the vibe? What's your take on it? I know you're historically quite outspoken when it comes to, rolling back some of that technology, and, Rory hit back at that pretty hard, didn't he? By saying, we're focusing on the wrong thing. We should be focusing on enjoyment. And, kind of interested to get your take, I think, really.
Yeah, I think a lot of the top players were I think it's a waste of money and I don't agree with it. I'll back what Rory says. But when you look at what he actually says in the full transcript, they've picked out pieces of it.
The media wouldn't do that, Richie. I'm not having that.
Oh, that, yeah.
I don't believe it. Are you telling me the media have constructed, taking what he said slightly out of context?
And changed the story? Yeah.
I'm not having it.
Believe it or not, it does happen. I get what he's saying, because it's a lot of money to invest and do that. But at the same time, if the USGA and R&A want to make a change, it would be the same people who would turn around and say, well, show me the evidence. A lot of stuff we do in golf is evidence-based. And the best coaches I know are evidence-based coaches. They can prove something to you. They won't just say it. You can prove it. And this is what the R&A and the USGA are trying to do. I believe, and this is a personal opinion, I believe that they need to do something. It's been a long time coming. I think they should have done something in 2005, 2006. And the reason I think they should have done something is because if you're going to make a change, you have to, for me, interact with the manufacturers, and you need to give them enough time, because they work years in advance on R&D and everything like that, and they put a lot of money into golf, and there's a lot of jobs in golf that are backed by them, and I think you need to respect that. And whatever you do, you need to give them significant time in order to change their business model. So, I'm talking whatever change you make, it's got to be in years, but I do think, definitely since I've been on tour, like the driving element, the size of the driver and the distance, people hit the ball a lot further. I hit the ball a lot further. And the other thing is further and straighter. That's the big thing for me, is like the technology really, really helps. Like,
the spin's right down on these things now, isn't it?
Yeah,
flying hard, and it's not flying off in every direction.
Well, how big the head is as well. Like, just stumbling across one of my granddad's like persimmon wound heads. Obviously, that's going back a long time. But you're like, no, but actually, you look at it and you're like, that is like probably smaller than a lot of fairway woods in terms of the actual face and where you can hit on it to get a decent outcome. To me, it seems like actually you could boil a lot of this down to the size of a driver head.
Yeah, I'm
just the size of it. If you did nothing about the distance component, said, you can hit the club as far, but you've got to hit it out of the center of the face, because if you don't hit it out of the center of the face, this thing is off the planet.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. That's so on my wavelength, because the other thing is, like, people, you talk about like entertainment. So, like, do you want to see everybody just hit it 320 down the middle every hole? Like, the most enjoyable guys to watch are Mickelson, and like, remember whenever you watch Seve, why? Because you don't know what's going to happen. Like, you could hit one down the middle 320, but the next one could be 40 yards offline, and he's got to cut it round a tree, and so what's he going to do here? That's what, when I'm offline, that's the time when people are like, whoa, what's he going to do? Like, cutting it round trees and hitting it through gaps in trees, and trying to hit shots. What's he doing here? Oh, he's hitting a sand wedge out from the rough and he's chipping it back onto the fairway. Do you want to watch? No, I don't want to watch that. I've got no interest in that. But you have the interest when it's exciting to watch, And the other thing is, what a lot of people don't realize or forget is that when you have that dispersion, if you stand up on the first tee, don't care if you're a pro or you're a 36 handicapper, You stand up in the first tee and you carve one way right. You stand up on that second tee and you're thinking about it. You don't care if you're world number one or not. That's in your head. So mentally, it's a lot harder. At the moment, it feels like if you've got a bunker at like 285, like say for me, and I'm standing there, I was like, well, I need to hit one pretty good here. I was like, well, I know I can just swing hard. As long as I hit the club face, it's pretty much going to
sort itself out, won't it?
Yeah.
It's going to work itself out. And it's all about sort of just generating that speed. But if you're standing there and you're thinking, right, I need to swing hard at this, but I also need to hit it off the middle or it's spinning up and there's no chance I'm carrying it. Like that's so the outcome is less predictable. So surely that's more entertaining. And it's harder for the golfer. You know, hitting the ball long and straight is a huge skill, but that skill in my mind is being diminished just because of the size of the head. So
yeah. Sorry, carry on, Richie. Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to see something done, and I would love to see. Because I just don't think we can afford to build courses, more tees, more maintenance, more money, which clubs really don't have, I think, at this time.
I think the argument falls down, though, because you can't have it every way, can you? So most people, certainly as an amateur, bifurcation feels like a step away. And I know it was there in the 70s, but, you know, there's a marketing cachet that goes with putting the new, you know, Callaway driver in your hands and then people going out and then buying it, or, you know, DJ picking up the Sim 2 and then winning with it and then people going out and buying that the next week. So you bifurcate, and I think that has the impact from a marketing point of view. People are interested in buying the technology, but then if you don't roll back the equipment at a professional level, then you don't get to see the courses, because, you know, the courses are becoming more and more obsolete, aren't they? So, you know, I know this is like stuff that constantly gets trotted out, but, you know, we were talking earlier about the schedule. If you rolled back some of this stuff to the point where actually you could take the game to other courses. You know, Royal Melbourne obviously had the President's Cup fairly recently, but that wouldn't host a 72-hole stroke play event, would it? Now, you know, it'd be great
I think it
to
could,
see more.
but yeah, I get your point.
You know where I'm going with this.
I get your point, though. Yeah.
It brings a lot of these courses back into scope, doesn't it, for tournament play, which I don't know whether it's a good or a bad thing, but, you know, it's hard because you just can't have it every which way. And yeah, I don't know. I suppose a question buried within there: are you for bifurcation or not? Because the pro, it's a funny line to walk, right? Because it really affects you. You know, you're in that kind of small catchment of players that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes to it, and the reason I would say yes to it is because really what Rory alluded to is you want to get people engaged in the game and making it that bit easier, because it is a hard game. Is the way forward, and equipment really does help you. The point you make about, you know, DJ going and winning with the driver, or, you know, John Ram having the new Callaway Epic and I want to play the same, is a really, really valid argument. And I think that's where the engagement with the manufacturers needs to happen. To iron some of those things out, but it just feels to me like something needs to be done, and it can't be half-hearted. It needs to be full bore, because I just don't think, like, you know, what we're going to do in 50 years, we're going to play 8,500 yard courses. So Are you going to have every, all right, guys, you've got to put another tee back there? Well, we can't. There's a row of houses, you know, or you've got to change the golf course. It's like, well, we can't change the golf course. We don't have the money. So I get where Rory's coming from, but, you know, my viewpoint would be, you know, if we had rolled back, or we'd drawn a line in the sand maybe 10, 20 years ago. So all those new tee boxes, all those new greens, all those new bunkers that were put into at golf courses to allow for the distance. Imagine all that money went into junior golf. You know how much money that would be?
Yeah.
Millions.
Yeah, literally
absolutely millions. And I just think we've got to, we have to do something. And I think for me, the driver head, just like you alluded to, is a huge thing. I don't mind guys hitting it long. If you want to hit it long, go and do it. And the funny thing is that if the driver head was small, people would actually stand there and go, that is even more impressive. To hit it straight and 300 yards, small-headed driver is way more impressive than hitting it with a big one. And it just takes, you've seen it, guys test it out with Persimmons and guys test it out with modern clubs. You've seen the numbers on the track, man. It makes a significant difference.
Yeah, I think it's a complex debate, isn't it, in many ways, because throughout history, the drivers of the ball who are long and straight have always been near the top of the money list and have always been the ones winning. So I don't think we're ever going to get away from that. I don't think we're going to be able to prioritize different skills in the game. Driving historically has always been hugely important, or a very clear indicator of success. It's just, and also as for the size of the driver head as well, I mean, obviously, as I was saying earlier, like I think that seems like some low-hanging fruit potentially. But I also wonder whether, paradoxically, it actually improves some people's driving as well. Like, Tiger is obviously held up as someone who was a pretty elite driver of the ball until a lot of the new equipment came in. And I wonder whether, someone like him, where he's maybe allowed to hit down on the ball a bit more. I'm putting my technical hat on here. I can see Sam rolling his eyes, but if he's allowed to hit down on the ball a bit more, whether actually, he goes back to driving the ball better than he does currently. I just wonder whether a lot of the emphasis on hitting 5 up on it and trying to hit it with low spin can also just become a skill that is chased after so readily by the likes of DeChambeau and DJ. But for guys like Mickelson, who grew up on older equipment, titanium heads with steel shafts, it actually hinders them a bit.
Yeah, it's funny that you mention that, because the debate depends on when you were born for me.
Yeah,
because I was born in an era where I was brought up on metal woods with screws in them. And I remember spending all my money on my 16th birthday on a Callaway Warbird and a Callaway 3-wood RCH 96 shaft. And it was like, these are the greatest things ever.
Yeah.
It was just like
going from a bicycle to a car.
Yeah, suddenly you felt like you're going voucher hunting at all these junior opens all the time, and you're just like, I'm going to play so well. And over the years, you go back to it and you think to yourself, oh yeah, I remember those clubs, remember getting bigger. And you go back to them now. You go back, I mean, you see an old Callaway Warbird driver, it's the size of a 5-wood.
Yeah.
And so I've lived through that transition, whereas a lot of the guys coming out now, they've only had the bigger headed, or generally had the bigger
spaceship drivers. Yeah, the UFO kind of.
So when I was, I'm growing up and I'm thinking to myself, right, we're not swinging hard on this. It was always about, think about Faldo. It was like get it in the fairway, keep it in play, because if you miss it, it's like that. It's like reload. Yeah. But these guys growing up, they don't have that. They don't have that fear. They don't have that problem. They don't know what it's like to hit like a small-headed driver and think to myself, like, okay, I'm hitting the other one, but like I could be about, by the time I'm finished here, I could be 5-7 off the tee. Whereas it's like, give me the big driver, swing hard, and the forgiveness, the technology will do its work. And that's great for the amateur, but I almost feel for the pro, it's kind of like, it's not too easy. That's not the right way to put it. I just feel like
it allows them to focus their efforts in one kind of dimension, and that's club head speed, right?
Yeah.
Well, speed,
things away.
Yeah. But it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you look at, Spieth, for example, and the only reason he springs to mind is because he's obviously making a little bit of comeback at the moment, but his driving is still, clearly the weakest part of his game. It's tough because he's obviously a really, really skilled player. And you're looking at his driving, you're like, well, wow, okay, if we went back to a small-headed driver, potentially would he just not even be able to get away with some of the misses that he's able to get away with now, or would it, focus his mind a bit more? I don't know. It's hard. It's a tricky one to kind of follow through to the logical conclusion there. But
it's funny because like golf would be, in my mind, say you just take like Tiger won Masters in '97, right?
Yeah.
First Master. You take '97 and you just like pause the button there and just say extend it all the way through to now with regards to equipment. I think Tiger beats Nicklaus's record. In my mind, he beat Nicklaus's record, and
Mike Clayton said the same. Actually, I remember when we first spoke to Mike. Yeah,
quite comfortably. That's not an issue, and I think it's had a negative impact on him, almost to the point I would say it might have had. I would also argue people like Rory would be even more of a dominant player with that 1997 equipment because of how sound and how technically good his swing is for me, and how he can maneuver the ball, and the miss for him on a smaller headed driver is still pretty minimal. It's amazing how the story would change.
Yeah.
And you're going to get people who won't like it, and you're going to get people who will like it. And a lot of people say, "Oh well, Richie, he doesn't hit it that far. He just wants to, he just wants to think it's going to be an advantage for him." Well, it's not going to be an advantage for me. It's nothing to do about me. I'm going to drop back as well. The long hitters will still be long, and the short hitters will still be short. But we'll probably be playing better courses.
Yeah, well, the prospect of maybe going back to like a Sunningdale, for example, which is what, sort of 6'8", 6'9", I think, from the back tees. Yeah. Going back to a course like that, which was a favourite amongst European tour players at various points throughout the 70s and 80s, I think, if I'm not wrong. That's probably exciting to a lot of current players. I mean, I don't know what we obviously taking the piss a little bit about Trinity Forest and some of the bad American courses, but it's applicable, I guess, in parts as well to some elements in Europe, and just courses everywhere that are maybe built not only for large crowds, but also for trying to, steer clear of a winning score that's 20 under par.
Yeah, like Celtic on the UK swing. There's a lot more to celebrate in British golf than Celtic Manor, isn't there? Like, I know it's a Ryder Cup venue, but
I think that was done partly hotel reasons as well, and quarantine and stuff. But
I get that. But also, you know what I mean? It's like we've got to have it over a layout that can accommodate distance. That's that's like a prerequisite of holding a tournament.
And I think some people have alluded to this as well. I think that's a huge thing for women's golf. Like a huge thing for women's golf. Go and play on these courses because they suit you perfectly. You don't have maybe as many crowds, so you don't need that huge infrastructure. But those real, old style courses that have that atmosphere, like a Sunningdale, like someone said to me, like, go and play the Scottish Women's Open at Kilspindie. You know how much fun that would be? That'd be brilliant.
It's probably a little on the short side. To be
But like you should really be playing the Scottish Open. I know it doesn't have a range, but North Berwick. How many people? Everybody sort of North Berwick. I love North Berwick. Go and play the Women's Scottish Open there. I bet you there would be a few people who'd be like, "Oh, the women are playing at North Berwick. I might tune that." I would probably tune in and say, "I would love to see it."
100%.
Yeah. Whereas use that as an opportunity. I know.
Well, they played at Ronimink, didn't they? Last year rather. They played. Was it the US Women's Open or the Women's PGA? They played at Ronimink, which they did.
Yeah.
Another kind of top courses like that in the States. They're part of the
I mean, Rory's even said it himself. He says, if it was down at Royal Melbourne, I'd think about maybe going to play. The key is. When you're tournaments, you need to set up for the big, not set the course up, but like speak to the big players and say, well, what do you want? Would we, if I put a tournament on here, would you go and play it? Well, Probably not. You know, like Justin Thomas goes and plays the French Open the other year, and yeah, he was going there to see the golf course because he wanted to see the golf course for the Ryder Cup. But he's also probably staying in like the Trianon Palace and then going to the Chateau. I mean, it's like he'll go back and he'll tell people, "I was like, oh yeah, well, I went to go around a chateau that was built by King Louis." And it's like, people, "Oh, you don't get to do that every week on the PGA." Well, that sounds quite interesting. Yeah. I was like, you know,
yeah.
And
I just went to the local Wendy's or whatever.
yeah. So it's like that.
Probably got my cultural reference wrong there, to be fair, but
that's the. I think that's the thing that brings guys in. You know, it's not always specifically about the golf. It's about the stuff that goes around it. Yeah, the golf course is really important, and if you said we're playing a tournament at Kingston Heath, oh, that would change my mind. So then my ears prick up a little bit there, and I'm like, oh, I think about that. Imagine you did a tour. You said to Rory McIlroy, what's your favourite golf courses? Would you come and play this? You know, I bet you if you played it on a course that he really rated and really enjoyed, they would come back. That's for me. Like they used to have the Scottish Open at Loch Lomond. That's the reason why it was a week before the Open, yeah, and it wasn't a links golf course. But what a golf course! What a beautiful place to go and visit. Guys would love to go back there. I know a ton of guys that say on tour always say, "Oh, we'd ever go back to Loch Lomond for the Scottish Open?" That's because they loved the place, they loved the golf course, and it was a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that if you put. Yes, it's hard to imagine if you put a kind of Australasian or Asian kind of swing to this global tour that we've been talking about that starts in Tahiti or Cape Kidnappers and then goes on to Royal Melbourne and Kingston Heath and then through to some venues in whether it's an Allison course or something like that in Japan or in Korea. And it's hard to think that people will actually turn that down. I guess with pros, they'd be like, wow, that would be what a stretch of golf that would be if you kind of were able to stagger it so that the time differences and the jet lag was managed and you had great fields there and you were playing these sort of classic courses that have been fantastic nick.
Yeah,
I think we've done a good job putting the world and the world of golf to rights here, Richie. Actually, roll back the equipment, make the drive head smaller, and just play tier one tracks.
Yeah, but it's so easy being on this side and doing it. And I mean, you don't sympathise, but someone's got to make the decision here, and there's absolutely no way it's a win-win across the board. Like you are never going to get this right. It's such a great topic. Yeah. That's why people like us love talking about it. Uh-huh. But when something's decided, that's going to be a really difficult decision to make. And I think it's coming soon. Like I think that report kind of set it out. So I guess time will tell, right?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do. There isn't, I don't think there is a right answer. Like you're saying, you're going to annoy people. It's just, for me, it comes down to like the sort of almost like say the good of the game. It's like, is this in the best interest of the game? Is the changes you're going to make, are they going to be helpful for the game in order to give it a long longevity, make sure that clubs can survive, make sure that it sounds funny, but people get around the course quicker, that kind of idea. That's what you've got to think, because it's funny, we've struggled a little bit to attract new members in the UK, and the pandemic has changed that because it's changed the market. So the funny thing was, as talked about, people have more time because they're furloughed. They have you can only play if you're a member, so more people have joined golf courses, and there's been a lack of competition. So there's a lack of, other sports that are playing, or you can't do some other things that you can't go away and travel. So those three things, the pandemic has changed it for, you say, the good of golf and getting people. And it's like, well, it's taken something artificial to change the market. Why didn't we do that ourselves? I'm not saying all the things you can do with the strength that the pandemic's done it, but you've got to think to yourself, well, the solution was there,
It's been the catalyst, hasn't it? And it's kind of sped things along. And, I think the clubs that do well out of this are the ones that realise that the market's changed and adapt quickly to what people are asking for.
Yeah.
Mindful of your time, Richie, and everything, but I really appreciate you coming back on. We'll be keeping a keen interest this season when the events start back up and you're back out of quarantine again and back out on the road. And we're kind of wishing you all the luck for the rest of the season, and we'll no doubt get to catch up with you hopefully in a few months.
Yeah, no, thanks. You guys are doing a great job. I loved it. Loved the videos of particularly of Woking. Oh, no, sorry, the Berkshire. Was it what?
Berkshire?
Yeah.
That was the one Brooks narrated, that one.
Did two of those.
Yeah, that was brilliant. So you guys are doing a great job. Just putting content out there for guys to, especially guys who come into golf now, just to talk about. And obviously I'm biased because I love the architecture side of things. So it's great to see that, and particularly promotion of the stuff in Scotland, because I believe we have a world-class place for people to come and visit. It's tough at the moment, but we need to show people it's still going to be there, and it will still be there once hopefully we get through
Watch this.